Hey guys, so today we are going to be talking about how to create physical visualizations using a laser cutter. For this, we're going to be using Data Visual to design the basics of the data-driven visualization. Then we're going to export those graphics as an SVG file, open it up in Illustrator, and prepare it for the laser cutter in Illustrator by creating the outlines for, in this case, area charts, adding some text so we can have some labeling that we can etch on the laser cutter / etcher. And then we're going to actually use the laser cutter. I'm going to be using a Glowforge, but it's going to be very similar to what is accessible at the Makerspace and on campus for you guys to use. So it's not going to be a huge difference jumping from the Glowforge example that we're going to talk about today to what you can use on campus. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk you through my process from using Data Visual to actually laser cutting and etching. So let's jump into Data Visual. So I am going to be using this chart for this example today. This is the CO2 emissions since 1960 by country. So if you hover over each one of these area chart aspects of the chart, it'll show you the country that the data is associated to. So this is specifically highlighting the United States, but I want to look at all the countries in this physical visualization. So what I did to make that a lot easier for me when exporting this is making a version that has different colors for every single country. So when I export this, I can correlate the color to the country that color and data set is associated to. I also made another version that makes it a little bit easier for me to see since these aren't stacked. I made a stacked version so you could see the color and then also add the hover state and then hover over each one to see and just confirm that that's the right country for that right area chart or area visualization. So again, this is showing CO2 emissions by country. So in Data Visual, so I'm going to export this version because I want it to all start from the baseline, not be stacked on top of each other. So I'm going to go to Export and then SVG. You can do PDF too, but SVG seems to be a little bit more consistently better. So I'm just going to do SVG. And then you can just save that to the desktop. And then I am going to show that in the Finder. So here it is in the Finder. And then I can open this with Adobe Illustrator. So when I open it in Adobe Illustrator, because I exported as an SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics, the keyword is vector there, then we could see that all of these different elements are individual vector graphics. So you can click on them, move them around individually. So we are basically going to take all these, I think it's 20 different countries, so 20 different shapes, and we are going to laser cut these out on the laser cutter. So each one is going to be cut out in DraftBoard, and then we're going to basically design it on a little platform, so it's going to stand vertically and then kind of be layered one after the other. The platform is also going to have laser etching for the right country and the range from 1960 to I think it's 2013 is the data I found. So now that we have this as an SVG in Illustrator, we can take all these elements, separate them out, label them so we know that, yes, this is the United States, this is China, etc., etc. So once we laser cut it, then we'll know which piece goes to which country. So what I first did was that I just created this new document The dimensions of this document are the dimensions of the bed where I can laser cut, so the size of the bed that I can laser cut. In my case, it's 12 inches high by 20 inches wide. So it's going to depend on which laser cutter you're using for the dimensions of the bed. I think the one in the Makerspace is like 12 by 20 as well, but the one in Clapper I think is 12 by 24, so it's a little bit bigger. So I just separated this out, separated each one of these visualizations out for each country, added the label so I know that this is the United States, this is Indonesia, etc., etc. So now I have like a good base for us to work with for the laser cutter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to design a platform that each one of these are going to slip into. There's going to be little slots for each country. And that platform is going to have the laser etching next to each slot for the name of the country. So because of that, we're going to have to accommodate for the height and thickness of the platform. So I know that this draft board that I'm using is about 0.15 inches in thickness. So I basically need to include that that little bit of 0.5 thickness to the height of each one of these bars, so it could slot into the slot and not be affected, and not affecting the visualization itself and the data for each one of these area charts. So for that, I created a new document that basically added that little extra space. So you can see these smaller ones have a bit of extra space at the bottom. So if you go back to the other one, see how these are kind of come to a point. But here I added another 0.15 inches to the height of these bars. So this bit here is going to be hidden underneath the slot in the platform, essentially. So once I did that, for the laser cutter, we don't need to have the color. All we need to have is the outline for anything that we want to cut. And then anything that's black and filled in, like the names here, that is going to be etched. So that's going to be etched on these little pieces. So this is actually not going to be seen when I put it into the platform because it's going to be hidden basically underneath the platform slot. But it's just for me to know that this piece is the United States, this piece is Russia, this piece is Germany. So when I laser cut it, I can easily see and identify which piece applies to which country. So now that this file is ready to go, we can laser cut this. But I also designed the platform. So this is a little platform that I designed that's going to hold all of these area chart pieces that I'm cutting out. So each one of these little slots is going to be cut out, and then I can put in to the slot the cutout area chart for each country. So this is going to basically be the base for all of the pieces that I'm cutting out for each country to help support and make them stand up. So again, all of the lines here should be like, I think, less than 1 point in thickness. All the lines are going to be cut out, so laser cut. And then all of the text and anything that has a fill, a black fill, is going to be laser etched on top of it. So that's basically all I did to set it up. Was I went to Data Visual, exported a chart from Data Visual. I uploaded that SVG export and was able to remove all the pieces individually. I created a new file to separate each piece individually. Then I added a bit of space because this is going to be slotted into a platform. So there's a 0.15 bit of extra space underneath the area chart. And then I created the outlines for things that I want to be cut. And then anything that has a fill, a black fill, is going to be etched. And then I also created a platform where all of these pieces are going to be slotted in. So we could see each area chart kind of layered on top of each other in a 3D space when we laser cut this piece out. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and send this to the laser cutter. So I am loading in the draft board into my laser cutter. This is what my laser cutter looks like. And again, this is a Glowforge, and it has a bed of 12 by 20 inches. So that's the size of the boards that I'm allowed to put in here. It's 12 by 20 inches. The great thing that I like about the Glowforge is that it has a camera in the top of the bed here, and that can scan this QR code and detect what type of material is in the laser cutter. With the laser cutters at school, you have to determine the thickness and the type of material it is, and then based off of that, you can change the parameters for how powerful the laser is, how slow it moves, etc., to cut out the material that you need to cut out appropriately. So now that this is all set up, I can turn on my laser cutter. I have a filtration system underneath my desk too, so I could turn that on as well. And then I can send this to print. So I want to make sure that everything's on and ready to go. And once it is, then I can save this as a PDF. And let's call this country pieces. And let's save this to the desktop. That's fine. Okay. One other tip is that the text should probably be outlined, because if you upload this and they don't have the fonts on the machine that you're using to send this to the laser cutter, then it's going to default to like Arial or something that's on their machine. So it's better to outline your fonts or all your text after you've designed it, so you don't have to worry about any of the font issues. So I'm going to go to app.glowforge.com. This is again a slightly different method than what you would do at school. I'm going to log into my account. And then with Glowforge, I can upload a new file to be laser cut, and I'm going to upload that countrypieces.pdf file. Cool. And then it adds it to the bed here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my laser cutter. And send the file to print. So there's my screen. It's going to take about 13-14 minutes to print. Here's the laser cutter. Alright, looks like the laser's done. So let's go ahead and open the lid. Check it out. And it looks pretty good. Let's see if we can take out the pieces. Alright, looks like they've been cut. Alright, so let's take out the pieces, and then we're going to go ahead and laser cut the base too, and then put them together. All right, so now that we have all of our pieces cut out from the laser cutter and etched, all we have to do is take off, there's the paper on top here. So we have to take off the paper. Just pull that off. Also, it depends on the material you're using. Sometimes it's plastic if you're using acrylic. If it's wood, it's probably going to be paper, something like this. So we take that off, and then all we have to do is put it together. That's it. So let's see how it looks once it's all put together. Okay, so here we go. Here's the 3D version of this chart showing CO2 emissions for 20 of the worst offending countries. So you can see that the platform has the title and the start and end date, and then all the countries. And then you can kind of walk around it and see the little area charts based off of the countries. So this is just a very different way of showing the same data in a 3D format. So we went from this to this using a laser cutter with the help of Data Visual and Illustrator. And you can definitely use other materials. So it might be interesting to use like plexiglass for this. So you can maybe like see through each area chart for each country. You can use different colors. You can spray paint it, you can add color to it. So you can get really creative with it. But this is a good example of how to use a laser cutter to make a physical visualization.